Hello, hello, beautiful people. You are listening to XLR Lander University Radio. It's your girl, Lauren Deschanel, and your favorite rockin' radio host, Scotty Rocket, bringing you Tupac tonight and every Tuesday night.
Hi,
welcome back.
I'm so happy.
I've had so much pent-up energy all day.
I swear, and okay, so I'm really excited for this episode, and I'll get into why in a little bit, but what is today's episode?
It is part 2 of my Black History Passion Project.
Yes,
the history.
This is like, I know we said the music one is like the most important one, but like
this one is so important.
This one is so, all of these are super important, but this one is in like the name of the thing. What? The title.
This is in the title of Black History.
Yes.
And like, I don't know. I don't even know how I chose the episode order. Actually, I do. I didn't know the order, and then the order kept changing.
Yeah.
And just frequently changes. So who knows? Is it music next week? Is it future next week? We'll figure it out.
Find out next time on Tupac. But so we're gonna get a little bit into the project, all of the things, just to catch you guys up.
Yeah.
Welcome to Tupac.
Last week on Tupac, we learned about activism. We had an interview with Jasmine McCrae from USC.
Oh, yes, we did. And this week we have another interview.
We do. Sorry, I got a text and I was like, what? No. Okay, so, shout out to Aunt Shirley for texting me.
Yes.
You're the best. Okay, so this week the interview was with Dr. Kenneth Campbell from USC. He actually taught Jasmine McCrae.
That's so cool.
And Reese.
Yes, who hooked us up.
So it's coming full circle.
It really is.
And so I did this interview alongside a dear friend and fellow DJ, Karma.
Who you can listen to
Mondays.
Mondays, yes.
Yes. I can't remember the name of her show, but I'll have her plug it when she comes in later.
It's like, it's a cooking show.
It's a cooking show.
Is she still doing,
She's not doing LU Fashion Police this year.
Oh, okay.
But hopefully next semester.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
So, we talked to Dr. Campbell about history, because that's kind of his whole thing. So, here's a little spiel about him, because we kind of we recorded on Zoom, so the audio kind of cut out when he was doing his intro.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Campbell is a professor at the University of South Carolina. He teaches mass communications, which is my major. I was about to read the whole thing. So, he teaches courses in mass communications theory, the representation of women and minorities in the media, and mass media history. His research addresses the First Amendment legal history, media coverage of lynchings, and representation of African Americans in the media, including news, advertising, and entertainment programming.
Lauren has been talking about these classes all week.
Literally.
And I am like just so excited to hear from him.
He convinced me to go to grad school.
Yeah, she's
just
like,
for his class.
Should I go to grad school? I should do that, right?
He wants me
I
to go to grad school.
Yeah.
Reese was like, yeah, I'll write you a letter.
Yeah. So, fun fact about today's episode, as she said earlier, our dear friend, Karma, who you can listen to Mondays at 12, did the interview with her, and I did not. So, I will not be on these interviews for the rest of the project.
Yes, but you will be here for recaps.
Yes, except for tomorrow. I know, guys, I'm so sorry.
It's okay. It's all part of the plan.
Exactly. So, I'm hearing these interviews just along with you guys, our beautiful audience. So I'm just as excited as everybody listening to these for the first time, because I'm listening for the first time.
You are.
This is so cool.
So when it comes to relating this back to the music, because as I said last time, this whole project is rooted in learning about Black history and culture through the music and seeing how that's grown and changed over time. And while there is some change, there's still some messages that we hear over and over again.
Yeah.
So in the songs that you'll be hearing tonight, it'll be songs about freedom, about the struggle, about overcoming that struggle, about finding power within yourself, being proud. Just pay attention to the lyrics and really absorb that. Because, like I said, that's the root of this whole passion project. Because not only am I passionate about my culture, but I'm passionate about music as well. And I love finding that connection.
That was beautiful.
Thank you.
I love when Lauren gets into talking about music, because Lauren, like, if you guys know her in person, you know that she is just so absorbed with, like, musical insight and just random facts about musicians and songs. People have facts about musicians, but a lot of times we don't really know a song, and Lauren just does. And that's really cool.
You're the best.
I can't wait for Lauren to be old and be a professor somewhere just because she feels like it, and she's like, "Oh yeah, you kids, I can help you with your project. Today we're talking about music and stuff like that." I don't know.
Maybe I will be a professor one day.
Sometimes I just picture that. That's just a thing that goes off in my mind.
My new life goal is to win an NAACP Image Award, and I think after that, I'll just be a professor.
After you get your award, you're like, my time is done. Time to teach so that others may get awards and such.
Why do you sound like the intro to Dear White People?
Oh, I love. Hello. The producers of this television program have used my ethnic but non-threatening voice to tell you the tales of Winchester University.
We're going to touch on that when we have an episode about code switching.
We're very excited.
We are so excited.
But for today's episode, stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
You are listening to Tupac on XLR Lander University Radio. I'm Lauren Deschanel, and I'm here with
Karma.
And I'm also here with Dr. Kenneth Campbell from USC. How does history relate to your career in journalism?
So history is extremely important. And of course, I have to believe that because I teach it, but I teach it because I believe it. To understand who we are, whether we're talking about who we are as how we identify, be it as African Americans, be it as journalists, be it African American journalists, be it South Carolinians. We know who we are by knowing where we've come from. And that tells us what we can do. It tells us what our possibilities are. It helps us make connections with one another so we don't feel isolated. And it gives us a sense of importance.
Wow. I like that too. So what made you want to do this project with us and embark on this journey?
So I've been teaching at the University of South Carolina for more than 30 years in the School of Journalism and Mass Communications. And I came into this with the background in newspaper journalism. So I was sort of focused on the present as a professional journalist. And then the more I wanted to understand what journalism is all about and the contributions that journalism can truly make in society. I had a great sense of it, of course, but to understand it even more, it sort of pulled me more and more into the history of journalism. And I was particularly interested in the history of journalism from an African American perspective. So interested in how have we been treated in journalism? Because think about it, when we look back and try to have a sense of history, most of us get our history from the media, right? And so if we get our history from the media, then we need to understand how the media captured that history and what is the meaning in the history that was captured then and how we can best use that now as we move forward as a society, how we understand each other who are like us and who are not like us, and see how we have treated one another and where we have made mistakes along the way. We can fix it now and move forward together.
These are such great answers, by the way.
Very deep. I like it.
I do too. Like, I'm not sure if I want to even follow the questions that I had or if I just want to follow up on what you said. Um,
So here's the last few years, yeah, I mean the last 30 years, that's not so few, longer than either of you have been around, I'm sure. But one of the things I've been doing is outside of my, work at the university. I do a lot of volunteer activities with young people, particularly African Americans and particularly African American males. And one of the things I do with them each year, it's not going to happen this year because of COVID, is I I present to them a Black History Month presentation. And that's always a highlight, a highlight of my career, whether I'm talking about at the university or just in volunteer activities. And it's because I start seeing, one, unfortunately, sort of the lack of knowledge. But then as they are receiving that knowledge, I can tell by the body language that, these young men and these young women, when I'm talking to a group of both boys and girls, you can just see how their self-esteem is growing the more they learn about their history. And let me say, one of the first things I say to them is African American history is American history. Okay, so we're not talking about something separate, something different. We're talking about our history in this country. And unfortunately, our history of African Americans, hasn't been taught, hasn't been presented to the students, hasn't been presented to us, as just citizens. And so that's why we have Black History Month. That's why we continue to have Black History Month. And it's an opportunity for us to focus on this history. And until the schools get it together and teach Black history as a part of American history, as an equal part of American history, as a significant part of American history, we will continue to focus on February as Black History Month. But with the understanding that it is American history that simply is not being told, period. And then when it is told, it's not being given the emphasis that it should be given.
Oh, well, then I would like to ask the controversial question that I wrote. So last year I wrote a speech on Black History Month and why we should do away with it. And here's the question. Do you believe that Black History Month serves as a vice that aids in educating both Black and other communities? And would eliminating Black History Month and integrating Black history into standard curriculum change the way people view the history of this country?
So you've just answered your question. Yes. And that's exactly what I was saying. If Black history is taught as a part of American history, is integrated into American history as it should be, then we would all know who we are as Americans. We all know who we are across the races so much better. We would understand so much better. And we would not need sort of this once a month separation of Black History Month from the other months. Every month would be Black History Month, because every month would be American History Month if it's taught in the schools like it should be. You remind me of an essay that I wrote about 3 years ago on Black History Month. One of my students in my mass media history class, who was involved in some community activities, asked me to write an essay on Black History Month. And one of the points I made in that essay was the continuing need for Black History Month, because Black history is not being taught in the public schools the way it should be. There is some Black history being taught, but certainly not at the level that it should be. Because when it's taught at the level it should be, we wouldn't be talking about Black history. We would be talking about American history, and we would be pointing out the contributions across the board of Americans.
Do you see a more digestible version of Black history being taught?
I'm not sure what you mean by a more digestible version.
Like something that people can, good for their palate, like it tastes better to
Like
them in a sense.
yes, like it's not as harsh.
I don't think Black history is harsh anymore so than American history is harsh. I mean, American history is the American Revolution. Is that harsh? American history is, the 7 Years War prior to the American Revolution. The American history is the Civil War. The Civil War is not Black history, it's American history. American history is the Spanish-American War and World War I and World War II. American history is disruption in this country when industrialization and urbanization took place in the mid to late 1800s. American history is full of what you might be thinking of as harsh, but that's a part of our history. And we want to learn that history and learn the lessons from that history so that the history we are creating now will not be harsh for those who come after us. So we have to tell the history, both the good and the bad. We have to tell the history that is the very visible history we like to think of, the Dr. Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks sitting, not giving up her seat on the bus, with the civil rights demonstrations where the hoses were turned on civil rights demonstrators. We have to tell those parts of history that sort of are always emphasized and are always visible to us, but there's so much more to our history. Dr. Martin Luther King would be the first to tell you that the civil rights movement would never be successful, would never have been successful had it not been for just ordinary people doing the things that they did. In order for him to be a leader, he had to have followers, and people followed him, and they followed him not like we saw at the nation's capital 3 weeks ago, violently entering the Capitol building. They followed him non-violently in the same space where that insurrection took place. It would be interesting to see how we talk about that history compared to the nonviolent history of the civil rights movement. And by the way, there was plenty of violence in the civil rights movement, but it was not by those who were seeking their civil rights. It was by those who were attacking them and trying to stop them from achieving their civil rights.
With that, I'm going to go ahead and transition out, and we will pick up our conversation with Dr. Campbell here on Tupac on XLR. We're back with Tupac on XLR Lander University Radio. I'm Lauren Deschanel, and I am here with
Karma.
And we are here interviewing Dr. Kenneth Campbell from USC.
All right. So now that we've kind of talked about a little bit on the riots that happened at the Capitol 3 weeks ago, I would like to transition into talking about the media and kind of how it affects this country's history and how it's affected us, especially in the recent years. The first question I have is, what do you think of the term fake news and how it's been used recently?
Well, fake news is a very real thing. Okay, that's first. Fake news is real in the sense that there is disinformation and misinformation that is being disseminated purposefully to mislead those who receive it. I talk about this in my mass communications theory class, and one of the assignments that I give my students is to write an essay about their media consumption. Where do they get their news from? Okay. And I must tell you that they caught me by surprise a little bit, and maybe a lot. And this is over the last year and a half. So it's not just since the insurrection. This is over the last year and a half. how many students are saying that they get no news from the traditional news sources, that all of their news comes from online sources. And that's not necessarily bad, because first of all, it means they're getting some news. But there are so many students of this generation, so many young people of this generation who are depending almost totally on social media. Now, I've been reading about that, and there have been studies about it, but to just sort of have students tell me that face to face is almost shocking. And so then the question is, well, if you're getting your news from social media, what are the social media sites? And that's where the concern comes, because there are so many social media sites that indeed are all about fake news. And I'm not talking about something somebody calls fake news that's from a traditional journalistic organization. I'm talking about sites that are created for the purpose of misleading people. And we've seen, I think, the consequences of that recently surrounding the election and surrounding the insurrection.
How has media changed over the past decade? Is it a positive or a negative change?
It can be described both ways. So let's talk about it in terms of a positive change, because the positive change is, in fact, that your generation is more connected to the news, perhaps, than the generation before it, and maybe even the generation before that, in terms of just having access and using that access. Now, the challenge for me becomes what you access, okay, what your generation accesses as news. And you don't necessarily have the same definition of news that, say, my generation has, okay? Because when I say news, I'm talking about that which is put together by and disseminated by traditional journalistic organizations, first and foremost. I'm talking about that which has verified sources in it. Even if sometimes the sources are anonymous, they are verified. And what they say has been corroborated by a second source. When I say news, I'm talking about that which is factual, okay? But that's not always the case these days. And that's another thing I talk to students about, or that students sort of inspire me to talk to them about, because there is so these people you see on TV who are what we might call talking heads, right? Who are just expressing opinion. That's not news. But so many take that as being the news, not facts, opinions. And that's where we have a real challenge these days, we being those who are mass communicators, though particularly those who are in the field of journalism or are concerned about the field of journalism, helping the public understand the difference between news and opinion. And when something is opinion, that's just what it is, an opinion or opinions. And news is something more substantive, and it's based on a set of factual information. Now, opinions can be then derived from that base of factual information, because people need help sometimes in understanding the news that's put before them. But the news has to be put before us first before we get to the point of opinion. And so much of what we find, especially on cable channels and on social media, is just opinions and opinions. One of the things that challenges me sometimes when I'm talking to students, or I'm hearing students talk about their consumption of what they consider to be news from social media, is anybody can post something on social media. And so just because you see something on social media, that doesn't make it, first of all, legitimate, but it certainly does not make it news. So when I think about news, I think about information that's been gathered through a process. a process where those who are gathering it, and I'm partial, to journalists, those who are gathering it go through a process, as I indicated, of verifying the information, of checking it out, and then making decisions about what's important and what's not, to tell the story accurately. And no, my students might say, but, and I've had students share this in essays, when you have social media, you have more access to channels of news. Each channel might have its own perspective, so you can get different perspectives from those many different channels. And that's okay too, if indeed you are going to go to the different channels. And when I say different channels, I mean different outlets, not necessarily TV channels, different outlets, to get a variety of viewpoints and then make up your own mind. If that's what you're doing, then that's good. But what's happening is too many are operating in what we call echo chambers. You go to the source that's going to tell you what you already believe, or tell you from the perspective that you already believe, and you get locked into that, and you become, you see yourself as, the opposite of all other views. And that's something that's challenging us these days in the media that we need to work on.
So when it comes to talking about that connection that we have found through social media, how do you think that impacts the way that we as Black people communicate with each other and connect with each other? Do you feel as though we have become more connected as a community?
Your generation, the current college student generation, the current high school student generation, perhaps is more connected outside of your physical community because of social media, more connected than, say, my generation, your grandparents' generation would have been, perhaps. It's much easier for you to just treat your cell phone like it's a natural part of you. You're constantly looking at it. You're constantly looking at your social media sites, and sometimes you're talking to people. Sometimes you're sharing without talking. People are constantly feeding you. My generation, when we pick up the telephone, put it to our ear and talk, that's when we are connected in that sort of way. So that's one of the good things about social media, is how it does allow you to remain connected. And of course, though, anytime you have something, in this case technology, that can be used for good, it can be used for bad. And so we have to always be on the alert when we're too connected to the social media, and when we're too connected to those parts of social media that are feeding us in ways that influence us, and we do not even realize that they're influencing us in bad ways. And that means it's easy to go to one of your social media sites and consume material that's just there, you think, for the entertainment. But while it's entertaining you, what else is it doing? What else is it telling you? What is it telling you about yourself? What is it telling you about others? And we've always had that. I've been teaching that in my minorities, women in media class for over 30 years now. When you look at representations of African Americans on television, and you see those stereotypes, and we laugh at those stereotypes because they're easy to laugh at, and they might indeed be funny. Is something else going on with us? Are we just being entertained, or are we internalizing those stereotypes in ways that then affect our own thinking about ourselves, about people like us, affecting how we think other people who are not like us think about us? there's so much to talk about in those terms. And I'm not sure that that we always realize that there's the possibility that we are learning. We are developing I like to use the term consciousness. We are developing a consciousness about ourselves while we are being entertained. And that then plays out in the way we see our own selves. And so that's where history comes in. If we have a good sense of our history, then we know to resist those negative representations, even though we might find them funny and laugh at them. We know to resist them in terms of allowing them to create a negative consciousness about us. But until we are taught that history, that positive history that we have, and the contributions that we have made in history, we're not necessarily able to put up that barrier to resist being influenced while we're being entertained by stereotypes and negative representations of ourselves.
That'll connect really well in our next talk break.
Okay.
So we will be right back on Tupac on XLR Lander University Radio. We are back with Tupac on XLR Lander University Radio. I'm Lauren Deschanel. I am here with
Karma.
And we are interviewing Dr. Kenneth Campbell from USC. So we were discussing the media. We have touched a little bit on the history.
Oh, yes.
Let's talk a little bit about the culture. Do you see a crossover between what is Black history and what is Black culture? An example would be our hair. There's a lot of history behind our hair, and that makes it part of our culture.
So that's a very interesting question. So if your audience could see me now, you'd see I've got almost an afro here, which was, of course, the hairstyle in my day. So there is a very close connection, between our history and our culture. Some might even say, our culture is our history, or you could turn it around and say our history is our culture. And what's really good about this, I think, is we display so much of our history in our culture. Whether we're talking about our music and the style of music, the lyrics in our music, whether we're talking about dramatic presentations, whether we're talking about Sunday morning, what's more culture for us and more history for us than what takes place on Sunday mornings in worship services, where we combine history, where we combine culture, where we combine worship. You go to some other worship experiences, and this is not a negative comment on any of them, but they're in and out in a few minutes, it seems. You go to some of our worship services, and you can be there for 90 minutes to 2 hours and longer, even in this 21st century. But you think about what's going on. What's going on is we work in our history, we work in our culture, we work in entertainment, and we work in worship. That's a lot to do. And so there's this tremendous kind of connection in all that we are. And that connection is strongest when we think about history and culture being intertwined.
This brings us back to music.
Yes, it does.
So this is perfect.
I told you we were going to hold hands.
Yeah, skipping now. We're skipping now.
We're skipping now.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. How would you say our story is told through music?
How is our story told through through music. I would say that our story is told through music in a way that allows us to appreciate our story and allows us to embrace our story. And again, like I was talking about, how the entertainment can influence us while we are being entertained. Well, that's what our music can do too. Our music can influence us, can give us a sense of self-respect, can give us a sense of, some bodiness, can give us a sense of strength while entertaining us. And we certainly saw this in the music that my generation likes to refer to as soul music, the music of the late 60s and throughout the 70s, and some would say into the 80s. Sometimes we referred to it as message music. Makes me think of a song it just popped in my head, by the OJs. They even had a song that was called Message in Our Music, right? And it sort of epitomized what was going on in music, music at the time, music by Black artists. Lots of messages, lots of positive messages, lots of history, lots of encouragement. And I'm not as in touch with your music today, but there are messages in the music you listen to today, depending on what you choose to listen to.
I do have a question. It's not on here, but now that we've been talking about it, with the way that music has been represented, especially in the media, how has the media represented African American music via media and to other audiences?
So my response to that would be, how have the media represented African American music? My response would be that the media have represented African American music largely as just entertainment, okay? Just kind of dance. This is something you can dance to. This is something that's entertaining. And the point that I was just making is our music is much more than that. And our music often contains messages that are uplifting and encouraging.
And with the movement towards rap music and kind of how it transitioned from being like rap music in a sense of it's a new style of music into like the, not necessarily a style, but the message music, especially music coming out of like Compton and Atlanta and stuff like that. Do you think that the media has portrayed us in a negative light or a positive light, especially when rap music started to move towards having more of a nitty gritty feel towards it?
So I think it's unfair to categorize music so broadly, particularly when you say rap music, because there are different styles and there are different performers with different purposes. And so I think what you're getting at is that, unfortunately, the media tends to focus on that part of the music that might not be as positive, that might not be positive in the sense of having messages that people that would encourage people to, sort of work together, do the right thing, those kind of American values, but instead is more focused on, I guess you would say more focused on sex and sexuality and drugs and all of that. And that then becomes the face of the whole genre of music, rather than separating that off and looking at the other parts of the music, which indeed is consistent with American music in general. Because no matter what genre of music we listen to, as when we think in terms of popular music, there's going to be that part that has the kind of what we think of as negative. But unfortunately, that aspect maybe of rap music especially, may be the part that the media gives most attention to, most visibility to, and therefore in the minds of many that becomes the nature of the music.
So, would you say that a lot of our legacy as Black people is in our music?
I would say certainly a part of our legacy is in the music. But I would not want to suggest that that's where we should turn if we want our full legacy. And where we should want to turn is our broad swath of history over time and the contemporary presence that we have, including an African American president, including an African American vice president, including African American senators, including an African American mayor in Columbia, South Carolina, in the Deep South. And the same has happened in other cities across the Deep South. African American professors at major universities in the Deep South, at the University of South Carolina, at Lander, I hope, at other universities. It's not all about what's most visible and what gets the most attention. It is about where are barriers being broken. And once those those racial barriers are broken, what are people then doing in those positions? And so, President Obama would not have been reelected had he not been doing the right thing, had he not been doing good things, not just for African Americans, but for all. So we have to make sure that we are capturing that part of our history in the past and now, so that we can make sure that story continues to be told as we move forward.
And we are back with Tupac on XLR Lander University Radio. It's your girl, Lauren Deschanel.
And I'm Karma.
And we are here interviewing Dr. Kenneth Campbell from USC. We are about to close out on this interview.
It's been amazing.
It's been amazing. You've answered all of our questions and then some.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to ask you two things. First, what is something that you want to leave us with? And second, do you have anything that you would like to ask us just to see where we're at?
Okay. So what do I want to leave you with? I want to leave you with just being open to your history and being open to understanding what that history can mean to you and mean for you. Now, you said you want me to ask you a question.
Yes.
Are you ready?
Yes.
So when I realized that I was doing this, and to help me pull my thoughts together, I pulled up a PowerPoint on my computer that I use when I talk about Black history to African American youth. And so the presentation is based around a question. So I'm going to ask you that question, this question that I have when I talk to African American youth about Black history. And it is, when someone says you are African American, what does that mean? What does that mean to you?
I do have a response. Like when you asked that, I thought about this immediately because I'm working on a paper about this. And my initial response to that is, for the longest time, I did not know I was Black, and not like the negative sense. I just thought I was a person. I thought I was a human being, and it wasn't really until I went to public school, because I went to private school for the first couple of years of schooling for me. And it wasn't until like my third or fourth grade year when I realized that I was black. I had black skin. You know, I knew people were different. I knew that society was a strange place and that there was all these other things. But my blackness, my consciousness of being black did not really hit me until I was almost in middle school, almost out of elementary school. And that's when I realized there's something different about the way society treats me and the way society treats me in response to how I act. And so I know my mom was always telling me, you know, you need to be good, behave yourself, you know, when you're in public, you know, be quiet, da, 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 da. And my grandma would do the same thing. I just thought, oh, you know, I'm a child, they're adults, like they know what's best for me. But there's so many underlining things about those statements that if you were to tell a child of a majority status, that they would just take it as, oh, I just need to be a child. I need to be good. I need to be a good child. But if for an African-American child, for a child like me, it means what you present to the world is going to reflect on your parents, on you, on everybody around you, on your race. It's like when people say, oh, you're a credit to your race. Am I really? Because I hate that statement. Am I a credit to my race or am I a credit to the human as a society? Like, what do I lack? Because I don't understand why you're saying this to me. Because as far as I know, I have red blood, I got skin, I got 2 eyes, 2 lips, a full set of teeth, and I'm doing the same thing you're doing. So why am I a credit to my race? So that really hit me when I learned what it meant to be black. So that's how I answer that question.
For me, this is just something that I'm starting to realize, like in this moment, is that it almost seems like being labeled as like African American rather than saying I'm black. I've in recent years just leaned towards saying I'm black rather than saying I'm African American, because it feels like when you say African American, you are somehow different than every other American. And I feel like because we are black people and we have been in America for so long, we are Americans and we shouldn't be
specifying what type of
American we are. And I feel like that leads to a lot of identity crisis just within myself, within our community, and within other people. You know, like someone asked me today, like, are you, like, they asked me if I felt any different because my mother is biracial. Like, my mother's biracial and my father is black. How do I identify? How does that affect me in my daily life? I don't want that to make me any less of a black person or any more of a black person over anyone else, you know? And I feel like that really shouldn't come into question. I don't know. I don't even know where I'm going with this, but
the one drop rule.
One drop rule, yeah. I feel like being African American and being American, they should be two separate things, and they often feel like they are.
Yeah.
But and so one way to think about that is when you say African American, what you are doing is claiming your history, claiming heritage. You're claiming that which makes you who you are. Not that it separates you from others, but it doesn't allow you to try to sort of create something that isn't. What you are doing is accepting that which is your history, your African history, your history in this country that makes you who you are. Even if that African history has nothing to do with a physical presence on the continent of Africa, it still is a part of your history. Think of one way to think about it is, I'll use maybe, well, think of Lander. You're at Lander, right? What is your mascot at Lander?
A bearcat.
Bearcat. Okay, so you are Bearcats, right? And you accept being Lander Bearcats. And you want nothing to do with the University of South Carolina Gamecocks. And in some ways, when you think of yourself as a Lander Bearcat, you are accepting the whole history of Lander Cats. You know, the basketball team's history, and they beat maybe Clemson in 25 years ago, and that makes you proud. though you had nothing to do with it, right? You're accepting a history, and so once you accept that, you can then work with it. You can maybe want to change it. Like some universities now are changing names on dorms and changing names on buildings because of people with segregationist past that we are trying to move away from. But you accept it, and then you work to change it so that you feel even better about being a Bearcat, or feel better about being African American. That's one way to sort of try to get your head around it and understand. The one thing you don't want to do when you think about when someone says you're African American, what does that mean to you? Well, the one thing you don't want to do is think negative terms. Think that somehow that makes you less than others, particularly the majority population. What it does is it gives you a specific history to reach back into to help you understand that you are equal to any other population. I'll stop with that.
I feel like a weight's been lifted.
Honestly, yeah.
Do you feel that way too?
I do. I feel like it's good to talk to somebody who's more knowledgeable in this subject because they've lived the life longer and they've been in this change of America as we've been like progressing. And it's nice to know that I'm not alone, you know?
Yeah, it's so easy to just be young and feel misunderstood and underrepresented. But then to sit down and have an interview like this and feel like you can one day feel that same way.
Yeah.
Just
a catharsis of sorts.
Yes.
There we go.
And I feel like we got very vulnerable in this last talk break, but it was all worth it because we came full circle and just feel a sense of pride, that same pride we felt in the beginning of the interview.
Yeah.
And let me say, it took me a while to get to where I am too, in terms of thinking and understanding and accepting. And so when I was where you are in terms of your college career, I probably was thinking like you're thinking and might not have been as far along as you are in your thinking in terms of race and racial pride, and then using that to have even more American pride. It's a process.
This gives me a lot of hope for the future.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
And that'll be one of our other episodes that we'll be doing.
I'm on the calendar for that.
Yeah, if you want to be.
Okay, I'm down.
Yeah, we're going to talk to the Black Student Union.
Oh, that'd be fun.
Yeah.
Okay. I liked it.
I like it too. Well, let's go ahead and close out on this interview. Thank you so much for meeting with us and agreeing to do this. It means so much to me that you wanted to be a part of this project.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure.
Welcome back to Tupac. It's your girl, Lauren Deschanel, and I am here with our first live guest. Was I on, Megan?
Huh?
Was I on?
Yes, you were on.
I could not hear myself.
It was our headphones.
Okay. We were just talking about how she did that to me before.
On the break, Lauren was like, turn the headphones down. And I did. And look what happened.
Okay. So welcome back. You're listening to Tupac live and
Surprise.
in person. No. Okay. I am here with, of course, my co-host, Scotty Rocket.
Moi.
And also here with our very first live guest. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. My name is Karma. It's really nice to be here.
Yes, you can listen to Karma Mondays at 12 on Culinary 872.
Yes, that is right. It is so much fun. I just ramble about blueberries, I swear.
I love that so much. But yeah, so Karma's actually who you've been listening to for the past hour, 2 hours. I don't know how long it's been.
However long we've been on.
But yeah, so I was so excited to hear you, and I loved hearing your questions. So
oh my God, thank you.
We're very happy to have you on as our very first live guest.
I'm very glad to be here. I'm wearing like skate outfit, so I'm like in the mood. You know,
I love
Yeah.
that. I love that. Oh my gosh. Can we please do a whole like episode on Black culture and its influence on roller skating?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Oh my god, the
Absolutely.
movie. You know what movie I'm talking about?
What?
The skate movie. I can't remember the name to save my life right
I
now.
really want to say roll bounce or something like
I think
that.
it's Roll Bounce.
Yeah.
We'll look into it. We'll
We'll
look
look
it up.
into it.
Nice.
So do you want to do roll call?
Roll call.
Roll call, roll call. Shout out to Amy from Hull, Scotland.
Our wife. Thanks, Amy.
Thank you for being you.
Thank you. And for learning about American history today.
Yeah, and learning about Black American history, which is American history.
Yes, most definitely.
Shout out to my grandma. Shout out to all of my relatives.
I swear, the amount of support that we are getting.
From Maryland, from Kansas, from
Aye.
Tennessee, from...
Incredible.
Yeah. Incredible.
Yes.
Shout out to my mom.
Mm-hmm.
I know that you've been listening. And thank you for teaching me so much about music, too.
Yes.
Because if it weren't for you saying this one thing to me, this whole project might have been completely different. When I was in like middle school, she said, you should really start paying attention to the lyrics of your music. And ever since then, I have.
Mm-hmm.
And look at where we are.
Shout out to Caitlin, our roommate.
Yes.
Always faithfully listening. We love and adore you. Thank you.
Shout out to our girl Bianca, who usually listens, but she was at a gymnastics meet, her very first one of the semester.
We're so proud of you, BB.
So proud.
Shout out to your Aunt T.
Yeah.
Yes. That rolls off the tongue so nice.
It really
Aunt T.
does. Auntie.
Does that annoy you? Let me know. Auntie. I love that. Anyway.
All right, shout out. Do we have any more shout outs?
You know what, Mom? You're going to get on my case later. I don't know if you're listening right now, but when you listen to this later, shout out to my mom. Because one time I forgot to shout her out, and she was like, you didn't shout me out. And I was like, I'm sorry. You
And
didn't
also
tell
shout
me.
out to my dad, because usually you listen, but you didn't text me, but
Right.
you probably are.
Do you have any shout outs, Karma?
No, my parents are asleep.
Mood.
Oh, shout out to Reese.
Shout out to Reese
Oh,
who was
most definitely
listening.
shout out to
Yeah.
Reese.
Hold up,
Yeah.
because he texted us finally to tell us that he was listening. He listens later, but he's listening live tonight. So thank you, Reese, not only for listening, but
Supporting
and
making
hooking
this
up
happen.
like a whole lot of these connections.
So, fun fact about the music. Amy, this is what I've been waiting to tell you. The one that I, behind the scenes fact. If you haven't noticed, or if I didn't already tell you, all of the songs were played in chronological order. And I will happily give you the playlist because I work so hard. So hard.
That will absolutely be going up on our blog eventually.
What blog?
The website.
Exactly.
What's our website, Lauren?
www.2pocxlr. Oh, 2poc.weebly.com. I was saying the Twitter at and
Yes.
the Instagram at
And the Facebook at.
and the Facebook at.
If you forget what the URL was, just go to any of those ats
They're all
and
connected.
click the link. Click the link in the bio.
Or just text me.
Yeah, you could do that too. That sounds like a much easier way to go around things. But yeah. So, as you guys noticed, I was not in said interview, and so, like I said earlier, I was listening to this live just for the first time, along with the rest of you listeners, and I loved it. I am so in love with everything. I think I almost teared up at the end. High key, I was like
She was
fanning
having
myself.
church.
Oh my gosh, the
was.
transition out. I was like, wow, as if I didn't
Yes.
plan that.
Lauren kept going, oh, wow, this is a great song. And she was like, oh, wait, I planned it.
I just really feel music deeply, but I also really love hyping myself up.
Lauren really said, who did this? Thank you, I designed it. This is a great playlist. Thank you, I designed it. So thank you, Lauren.
You're
But,
welcome.
yeah,
I do.
I do have a couple questions for you guys.
Of course.
Of course.
So I'm very excited. And I've been writing these down as we go along. So if some of these sound odd, it's because I came up with them
On the fly.
on the fly.
Those are the best kind of questions, honestly.
Yes. Okay. So I have these like split up into parts as to how the show went. So part 1, he said ordinary people doing what they did in terms of historical protests and movements, and it was just a collection of ordinary people doing what they did. So that really strikes a chord with me and this show in particular, because we're just students. Like, saying just students is one thing. It's like, oh, we're so much more. But like for reals, we're just students. So how do you guys feel knowing that you guys are making an impact, not just on our campus, but as we just said in like a roll call, we have friends, family, people from other countries, other states, etc., listening and learning from this. So how does that feel?
Would you want me to go first? You want to go first?
Go ahead. You started.
Oh well, yes, true. It makes me remember that I take leadership classes here because I'm going to be in OL this summer, but that's whatever. But it just reminds me that you don't have to change the world to change somebody's mindset. You can just do small things and like have small impacts that are going to have a domino effect on your surrounding environment and the environment that you live in. So when people tell me, oh, you're changing my life, or you're helping me learn something, or you're helping me understand something, I'm like, wow, I did that? I'm sorry, I didn't know. Like are we good? Is this good? And when they say yes, I'm like, well, I guess I'm going to keep doing it. You know?
Yeah.
If it's a little thing that I can do, if it's an everyday thing that I can do, I'll put my lemon pepper steppers on, and I'm going to step right up in there, and I'm going to do what I got to do.
That was a beautiful quote.
That was great.
Gosh.
So the civil rights movement was just ordinary people.
Yeah.
We are just ordinary people. And it was actually a lot of college students. I mean, Freedom Summer, which a lot of people know as the Summer of Love, was the Freedom Summer for Black people, right? It's when we had a lot of one-counter protests where students were making an impact on not just their areas, their cities, their states, but on the U.S. And I think it's so cool that we get to do that, and we have a platform, and we intended to do that, and we're doing it. Like, I always say I'm a baby activist, but
We're growing into it.
This is activism, and we're
Right.
growing into it. We're doing it.
Most definitely. I would like to add on to that. I don't want to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
But I think that in the modern age, especially with all the technology, like we're taking activism to the next level.
Yes.
So like I used to write poetry. I write poetry. I write poetry about this stuff, and like I remember I was writing the revolution will not be televised, and I did a 21st century rendition of that. And I got it published from the school, and I was very excited and very proud of that.
Ooh.
And it just reminded me of like the parallel of what they went through and what we went through and how we're still going through it, but we can level up our version of activism to make it our own, so we don't have to live in the past. We can learn from the past.
I have a great question on that later, so I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah.
But since we're rolling, we talked about, or y'all talked about, oh my gosh, I loved it so much, teaching Black history and as American history. But one thing that I've noticed, one as just being a student in the South growing up, is sometimes they'll like sprinkle it or they'll teach about Black history, but they'll either teach it wrong or just incomplete. So for examples, Rosa Parks being quote unquote tired when she was on the bus, and it was like, oh, poor Rosa, she was tired, she didn't want to. Exactly, she did that on purpose. That was whole planned.
She wasn't even the first.
Right, exactly.
It was, what is it?
They wrote a whole
Claudette
children's
Calvin?
book on that too.
Yeah.
I was mad.
Yes.
At least it had pretty pictures.
But yeah,
love Carmen.
so they teach like what you said earlier, like a digestible form of it. Or Harriet Tubman, they didn't talk about her leading an entire military raid, which ended up saving, what was it, 700 plus slaves.
Wait a minute. Did I just learn something? Wait a minute.
Girl.
Okay.
Girl.
Yes.
Whoa.
Right.
I learned something new every day, and
That's intense.
the day we did this interview, I learned about the Black Codes.
Yeah.
The Black Codes were a bunch of laws that the South came up with right after the slaves were freed.
It was
to
before
keep-
Jim Crow, yeah.
Yeah, to
Yeah.
keep them working under all these harsh conditions and basically have free labor.
Yeah.
Still, like legalized slavery rules.
Yeah.
I was so upset
Wait
that
till you
day.
learn about the paper bag rule. Ooh, you gonna
I
be
know
mad.
about that. But this one, I don't know why, but the Black Codes hit me so hard.
Lauren was.
I was upset all
upset
day.
All day.
All day.
You know, but
All
you're mad for
day.
a reason.
Yeah.
Let your anger fuel your revolution.
Yeah, and then we
Yes.
interviewed Dr. Campbell that same day, and
Ooh.
I went from feeling like a misunderstood, angry, hurt little teenager to feeling like there's hope.
Yes.
And like, I too can be at peace.
Yes.
And oh my gosh, it's such a powerful feeling knowing your history, which is what he talked about.
Yes.
You know? So teach it right.
We are constantly students learning new things. I'm going to tell you more about Harriet Tubman in a little bit. I'm going to send you like a
We
little
should do a
link.
whole episode.
Yes.
We could do a whole episode on broken Black history. I'm saying
Yes.
I
Come back.
myself.
Come back.
Is that
yes.
a new
I'll
radio
come
show?
back.
Yes.
Is that a new? No, that could be a whole show.
Broken Black history. Wait,
yes.
where's the?
Write
I need to
that
write that
down.
down.
Write that
I'm
down.
gonna text myself right now.
Stop
Yes.
the presses.
Here we go. We're
But-
just doing more things. And
Yes.
more things.
Because this matters.
It does.
You know what else matters?
My life.
That's right.
Welcome back to Tupac. It's your girl Lauren Deschanel. I'm here with Scotty Rocky and also here with Karma. That was My Life Matters by the Hamiltons, because you know what matters? What matters, Karma?
My life and your life
Exactly.
and your life.
In your life.
Yes.
I love y'all so much.
You know what else? Black Lives Matter.
That's right. That's right. I am loving the energy in the studio today. I just want to say that. Karma,
way-
thank you so much for being on here.
I'm so glad that you invited me. I'm so glad to be here.
And you'll be on next week.
Yes.
Oh, yes. Yes, I will.
Come back, guys. Come back.
Unfortunately, Scotty Rocket will not be with us next week.
But I might be live streaming it on
Yes.
Instagram and my live reactions. So,
And you can
No promises,
send us
but-
some questions for the recap.
I absolutely
Like
Slide
will.
into
throughout
the
the show.
DMs.
I will.
Actually, everybody go ahead and plan on texting me or messaging me
Yes.
on the app so that I can answer some questions for the recap next week.
Yes. Gosh. But, okay, moving on. We are going through questions that I
round.
have for you guys.
Speed round.
Yes, speed round. Not speed round. I want you guys to answer these
I
for
mean, like,
realsies. But, yeah.
Yeah.
It's quickly jogging round. Like you're
Yes.
missing. You're late to
We're-
class.
Yes.
Walk on
Oh
the
my
boardwalk.
Walk on the boardwalk.
Yes.
Holding hands.
Holding hands.
All right.
I quite like that she said missing class, though, because this is class.
Oh, yeah, this is
We
class.
we call this class
Oh,
all
yeah,
the time.
welcome back to class.
Welcome
guys.
That's how I talk about my show too.
Oh, right, because it's whole named.
Yeah.
I love that so
Okay,
much.
questions.
Questions.
Let's do it.
Okay, so Dr. Campbell said our history is our culture. So this whole thing is centered around music. So what comparisons and contrasts would you guys make between today's quote-unquote message music and music that we've been listening to for this past hour and this entire project?
All of this is message music.
Everything,
Every all of the most iconic songs that we know are message,
Message
music. Like, think about it. What's Going On by Marvin Gaye?
Yes.
Message music. 2020 riots, how many times?
Yes.
Message music. Say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud.
Yes.
Message music. There's a message in every song, but when it comes to culture, you can find our culture within that message.
It's
if
how you
look hard
interpret
enough.
it. Like
Yeah.
Kendrick Lamar, I love his music. His music is so good. And I remember when there was a time in my life that I hated rap music. Like I hate it. I know hate is a strong word, but that's how I felt, because I just felt like it was like, I don't want to say it like, no, it's going to sound bad. It's going to sound bad no matter how I say it. It sounded like the kind of music that the people that I didn't want to associate myself with listened to. And so that's why I was like, no, rap music, bad. And then I got into my senior year of high school and I was like, wait a minute. There's more to this than I thought. And it wasn't just like trap, it was like actual music with actual like stories in it. I was like, wow, this is another perspective. And Kendrick Lamar is like our new generation of like message music. There's also other people like Topaz Jones. Oh my god, I love Topaz Jones. Makes such good music.
Yep. And honestly, rap music started out as message music.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, basically everything did. I mean, black people created rock and roll.
Yes.
The blues
And the
came
blues,
from-
the blues came before
Thunderbird
that.
would be proud.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
the blues came right before that, and that was our message. And it's so powerful because we continue to use it in so many ways. Like, some of these songs I would hear at a cookout or at a family reunion.
You know it's good when you hear it at the cookout.
Yes.
Because everybody knows it.
And it's not
Yes.
even just about the fact that it tells a message. It's also giving us a sense of hope. Like, there were times in history where they would take away any form of entertainment or music that a black person could make, because that was the punishment then. And what did they do? They sang.
Yeah.
That's where we got our spirituals and our hymns. And then slave owners started singing them too.
We talked about that with Jasmine.
Yeah, we
and
did.
that didn't get onto the thing.
I'm just gonna have to do
Gosh.
a behind the scenes episode.
Yes.
BTS episode.
Yeah,
Yeah. Let's do it.
Yes.
on the YouTube.
Yes.
Yeah.
on the blog.
You know that blog don't exist.
It do in my mind.
You know what? She got all the tabs open too.
I do. Y'all don't want to see my tabs right now, but yeah. So, our history is our culture. How do you guys think that the events going on today, like our history in the making, is going to influence Black culture later on?
We already see it.
Oh yes, I think the
Like
most
when we're old.
when we're old.
Like when we're old.
Not even that. When Black Panther came out,
Yes.
and "What's Up, Auntie" was the thing.
Yes.
That's literally like what you're saying. The question you're asking, that is the answer. That the replication of the movie, the movement, and into like real life people wearing it, making T-shirts, making stickers. Like it just was copy and paste into reality.
Yeah.
So it's not even a matter of like, oh, the future, the past. No. It's here. It's with us. We vibing with it. All right.
You know how Jasmine said the movement continues?
Yes.
So the movement will definitely continue with us, and we are going to pass it on because the movement is not something that stops. It is something that has been lifted up and carried from generation to generation.
We
So
just
I
dropping
will,
seeds.
yeah, we are just dropping seeds. I will gladly plant the seeds in my future children,
Sowing the trees. Sowing the trees.
making a whole garden.
Mm-hmm. You like lavender? I like lavender.
I love lavender.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
That got on me. This is totally unrelated, but earlier Lauren was like, Megan, you look like you named your daughter Lavender.
You know what?
And I was like,
lavender from Matilda.
Did you see her today with that
No.
cardigan on?
I did.
She said it's because Megan said, I look like an essential oils mom. I said, yeah, you do. You look like you named your daughter Lavender.
and I stopped for a minute. I was like, man, I would.
That would be a cute name.
It would. It's kind of low key now in my list. I did not write it down immediately after she said that. But anyway,
we all got a list. We all got a list.
We all have a
Exactly.
list. I have a whole book.
I have
Exactly.
oh my, we're not gonna get. Oh, no. I just remembered something.
Hold up. This is Tupac.
Tupac.
Yes.
We will talk about this to ourselves.
Yes.
To
Yes.
ourselves.
Become a Patreon, and you can. No, you can't.
We
don't have
should
a
really
Patreon.
make a Patreon.
We should.
We
Okay.
should. Then
People
we can make
would like
merch.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm down for merch. I love stickers. Stickers.
We about to be 3PAC.
Yes.
3P square.
3P square. Well, okay. On to part 4.
Okay.
I got a lot more questions on this one.
All right.
So, and you kind of touched on this, and I was like, ooh, let me write this down for
Yeah.
this question. But he asked, when someone says you are African American, what does that mean to you? And Karma, specifically, you talked about coming into the consciousness of being Black. And literally just a second ago, you talked about how rap music was something that people who you didn't want to associate listened to. So I was going to ask another question, but
Ask your question.
no, but I found another
Maybe it'll be a
better
fun
question.
Okay, we're leveling up. We're leveling up. I got you.
I wrote down internalized racism and how society kind of jumbles that, because my best friend growing up, Halima, she would always talk about
I had
how...
a best friend. I have a best friend named Halima right now.
Girl, she told me that earlier, and I was like, I cried.
solidarity.
But
I'm sorry. I'm
Halima?
interrupting you.
yes,
I want a Halima.
You'll get one.
Yeah.
They come to you.
I'll get
yes, they
2
do.
Halimas.
You are gifted,
like
a Halima.
Simone's.
Yes, made up character.
We'll touch on that later.
Yeah. So, what would you say propelled you really into stepping into your Black culture after so long of just being like, no, this is not me?
Honestly, I didn't really start believing in my Blackness until I was a junior in high school, and then I didn't really try to step into it until I was a senior. And then I'm still experimenting with it. I hate to say experimenting, but I'm still experimenting and trying out what about my Blackness that I like and I don't like, and what I want to learn more about. And so, wait, what was the question again? I don't want to get too far away from
No,
it.
you're good. It was what would you say propelled you into stepping into your
propelled
culture?
me.
So you're right on track.
Oh, shaving my head.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And yes, and so I will explain this. So my junior year of high school, so my hair is one of my big things, and it was never very long, and I always thought that I had to have long hair to be pretty. I had to do this because it was just like the social standard of society and what I was seeing in the media and all the time. And so something that really propelled me is that I had a crisis. And my dad was always telling me, you need to do something different with your hair. You need to do something different with your hair. And I was like, all right, fine. I finally did it. And the problem with my hair is that it's such a fuzzy texture. It's so soft. And I put a texturizer in it. And a texturizer is similar to a perm. I already had a perm in elementary school, and I decided to grow it out. A texturizer is similar to a perm. It just, like, makes your curls a little bit nicer. It kind of loosens them.
Mm-hmm.
And what it ended up doing to my hair was literally destroying my curl pattern. I had straight spots everywhere. It was just a mess. And I might cry. And what I ended up doing was growing it out, and eventually, it was the day before my senior year, or the week before senior year, I went to a shop and I was like, all right, cut it all off. Cut off all the ends. I want my natural hair. I want my hair back. And it was at that point I realized my hair is a part of me that I wanted to show the world that I was assimilating into the culture. You know, it was, okay, it's cool to have my little Afro puff. It's cool to be like this, but every other girl that was like me, that had a lot of white friends, that was in all of the honors classes, did the same thing I did. Mm-hmm. And I thought that I had to be that to kind of fit in and have friends in high school for the longest time. And finally, when I cut off that hair, I was like, wait a minute. Something's not right here. And then I got my first pair of big hoops, and I kind of fell into that. I am a black woman. Like, I was a girl, but I fell into that. I'm a black woman. I can wear big hoops if I want. I can wear my hair short if I want. I can do this if I want. And that was also the same time that I started to, like, love my body. And I think a lot of things just kind of fell in the same. Yes. I cut off my hair and I loved myself more. I gave into the standard, gave away the standards, really, of hating my body and wanting to be skinnier. I was like, it was just a whole bunch of things at the same time. When I got to my freshman year in college, I was fully in tune with it because I went from being surrounded by, I went to a school where I was a minority actually. And it was a well-funded school in Columbia, because Columbia is one of the better-funded districts in South Carolina. And so I went from that to Lander, and I was like, I went from point A to point B, and nothing has changed for me. I'm still surrounded by a lot of white people, a lot of white culture, a lot of this. And I was like, I cannot assimilate again, because if I assimilate, I will lose myself completely, because I have nobody to ground me. I don't have my parents to ground me. I don't have my friends. I don't have any of my family around me to ground me. I'm 2 hours away from anything. So I had to give in to my blackness and understand that I am black and be black, because if I wasn't, who would I be? I would just be in the crowd, flowing, trying to make friends, trying to be this girl. And I was like that for the first semester of freshman year, because that's just all I knew. And even though I was like coming into it, it really hit me my second semester, because I realized that some of these people I was trying to be friends with didn't want to be friends with me, or they didn't want to be friends with a part of me that I wanted them to see. And so I was like, you know what? It's not worth it. It's not worth my time. It's not worth my hassle, my struggle, my mental health. Mm-hmm. So when it comes down to my mental health, I don't play. So when you start messing with that, you got to go. Peace out, Boy Scout. That's my new thing.
I love that.
And so I came into my blackness, and I learned my value as a person, and my value as a woman, and my value as a black African American woman in this point of my time in my life. So that's, to answer your question, the long way around.
Oh, I love that.
No, okay. So when I met you, it was that second semester, right?
Yeah.
And I met you with short hair. You had hoops. I was like, oh my God, who is this girl?
Yes.
She's beautiful. I'm good friends with her. Like, I'm here for it. I was like, here is a strong black woman. Do I want to be her friend, or do I think that she's going to dislike me? Like, am I too white for her? Like, I don't know. That's a whole insecurity.
I fear that too.
Right into this.
But so then now I'm looking at you right here next to me.
Yeah,
beautiful,
thank you.
Amazing.
I try.
Flourishing.
Oh wow. Ooh, she's
we
just
love it.
Complimenting me all day.
And then I look at this picture on the wall in front of me, and you guys can't see it. I might post it on the story later, but it is this picture I took of you last semester.
Yeah.
Your hair is short. You had your hoops in. I saw you coming to the light, and I was like, this is a great photo. And then you got up and sang a Lizzo song, because it was karaoke night.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and there was no way that I could have known that is who you wanted to be, and you weren't that person before. Like, it seems like this is who you've always been.
Yeah, I'm really coming into myself now.
Growing into... It's a weird concept, but growing into your blackness is totally a thing. Mm-hmm. Especially when so many people put it down. And a lot of that is rooted in the society that we live in, where there's still oppression taking place in such small, minor ways, like microaggressions.
Yes.
Microaggressions are a small form of oppression, but they have such a deep impact.
Yes.
And honestly, I will say this, and I don't want to say this in a negative connotation, but it's going to sound slightly negative. I did not want to be assumed as a ghetto black girl, and you know what I mean when I say that. Mm-hmm. When I think of ghetto black girls, and I use air quotes, and you can't see it, but I think of like the stereotypes in the movies and the stereotypes you see in the media, and it's just so disheartening because I want to be a black girl, but I don't want to be the black girl that the media portrays. And so now I fight hard. It doesn't matter how I fight. I fight with my clothes. I fight with my speech. I fight with my music. I fight with everything in me, and outwardly shining that I am a black woman, I am a black girl, I am a black person, but I am not the stereotype the media has portrayed to people for so long. So you don't get to think that I'm ghetto. You don't get to think that I am unsophisticated. You don't get to think that I'm not civilized, because I can be all those things, but I choose not to be.
It's like that thing I said the other day where, who are you to tell me how black I am?
Mm-hmm. Especially other black people.
Yeah, and like what type of a black person I am. Because that's a struggle for me. It's like, am I black enough or am I not? Mm-hmm. I feel like that shouldn't even be a question.
And it is all the time. Mm-hmm. There's this, and that ties perfectly into this next question that I have exactly written down. There's this idea of one not being black enough, or, and I heard this all the time, and it was the most aggravating thing, but, you're not black, you're just white on the inside.
The Oreo comment?
Yes.
Oh my Lord.
The amount of people that I have yelled at for Halima.
What is that Facebook post? I was talking about it to Kiana. Shout out to Kiana if you're listening.
Shout out to Kiana. You'll hear her next week.
You will hear her next week. It was a Facebook post about how people will tell black people that they talk white.
Yes.
And how...
Oh my God.
Like,
if we didn't.
Yeah, and then the response under that is... a black person speaking in an intelligent way is not an imitation of whiteness.
Exactly.
Because whiteness, Kiana said this too. She was like, whiteness and speaking intelligent is not, like, there's no genetic connection to that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyone can speak intelligently. Mm-hmm. Like, that just feeds into the stereotypes that black people just aren't as capable.
Aren't educated.
Yeah.
Just... Oh, that makes me so mad.
I know.
I don't want to get triggered. I'm trying to relax.
I know. It's okay.
But
this is a safe space.
It is. And this is a space for communication, learning from each other, and learning and teaching other people.
And that's what Tupac is about.
That is exactly what Tupac is about.
I really appreciate this show. I do.
And we appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being on here.
Yes.
So, we are well over our time, so I just want to ask one more question. Exactly. Thank you, Lauren. It is that question. Okay, so I, again, was not here for this quote, but afterwards, Lauren and I were talking about it the next day after the interview was recorded. And so I just want to ask you guys to reiterate, what did Dr. Campbell say about calling ourselves minorities?
Okay, Karma, how do you spell minorities?
All right. I'm looking at this so I can spell it right. It's spelled M-I-N-O-R-I-T-I-E-S.
Okay. So what's the first part of that word?
Minor.
Okay. And what are we not?
We are not minor. We are not insignificant. We are not to be belittled or to be disqualified from living. Okay.
Because we matter.
We matter.
We do. And so, yeah, we're not minorities. That's kind of like a label that's been placed on all
people of color.
People of color, air quotes around minorities, to make us seem like we're small. We're not. We're everywhere. Black people are everywhere.
They're in Ireland.
They're everywhere.
Black people in Ireland on TikTok is the best thing I've ever seen.
I swear.
I'm sorry, Amy. They just said Ireland. You know I'm on Scottish TikTok.
I'm Southern.
What?
No.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're everywhere. I think it's so interesting.
There's no way we're a minority.
It's, what's wild though? Like, outside of America, it's not really a problem. Like, the word minority to be used in a negative connotation. It's wild because, like, outside of America, we are in the majority.
Yes.
It's like you have all these other ethnic groups that are in the majority. We consist of the majority. We are the people of color in the majority. But in America, we are we are ethnic. And
Africa's a whole continent.
Yeah, sure. Africa's a whole continent. India's a whole continent.
Asia.
All the Asian countries. Like Hawaii, it's a state, but it was an island. It was its own before the United States decided to do the whole Britain thing.
How are we
The Britain thing.
How are we all minorities when we're not?
We're in the majority in the world count.
Yeah.
That is a new mindset. Wait a minute. You know what?
I just thought about that just now, this second.
Wow.
We will talk about that on our podcast that we're thinking about starting, The Issue at Hand.
I'm so excited to listen to that, y'all.
So be on the lookout for that.
Yes.
All right.
But we are well over our hour, so we would just want to go ahead and say thanks again to all of those joining us tonight and every Tuesday on this journey of research, conversation, and self-discovery. Be sure to follow us on social media at 2POCXLR for updates, content, and more fun stuff. And please be sure to tune in again next week. I'll be tuning in same day, same time here on XLR, Lander University Radio. Also, check out our website that we sometimes post on www.2poc.weebly.com, or follow the link in our socials. Follow Karma.
Woo-woo.
On like literally everything. Karma has so many.
I know. I've tagged her in all of our posts.
Okay, amazing.
Pick one, and then it'll lead you to the next.
Yeah.
And if you would like a playlist that inspired tonight's episode, the link will be on our socials.
At some point.
At some point, it will be a thing.
We should put it in the highlights.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Lauren, you want to give us the quote of the week?
Okay. This quote is from Malcolm X. Education is the passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today. Be sure to tune in next week as we continue this exploration in Black history, and we will be talking about music.